chills feel like rain.
And there were other discouraging words as well. Before long, all eyes were on the Herald's rear end. Triumph might have made a big play of the independent rear suspension, but in reality, if you pushed the little dearie to the limit, it handled like a wayward supermarket trolley. If you drove it hard, the rear end would break away, inducing a heart-stopping tail slide. He thinks the lady doth protest too much. The build quality was only sorted out when Leyland took over. Without them, Triumph would have gone under, and they gave the Herald a new lease of life. Just as well, because now it was attracting some very discriminating buyers.
It was a very proud British achievement, actually, the Triumph Herald. If such a car was on the road today, I would buy it as a second car. It does have an enormous feeling of openness and freedom and speed and manoeuvrability and safety. So it was a great car. It was the only car in which I ever committed a speeding offence.
Oh.
I exceeded the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Regent's Park.
Don't think you've told me that. It was very useful because our children were really quite young then. You could get 3 of them in easily, 4 to squeeze. And so rolling in from the farmhouse that we rented down to Coutances and singing, they were yelling in the back. Yellow Submarine, Beatles' favourite, was very much the #1 on those days.
One summer, I remember, I had an entire week doing cases throughout mid-Wales. The sun was shining gloriously. We settled all the cases. So I had a marvellous week driving from lake to stream to sea to court in the open convertible. Marvellous. I can't understand why the Herald convertible didn't conquer the world. It's a great pity.
One of the reasons why everybody loved the Herald so was because it was just so easy and friendly to drive. It was light on its feet, quick and nimble with this urgent little engine. You could thread your way through the traffic and pretend it was a sports car. In fact, it was such a breeze to drive that it became a firm favourite with the driving schools, even for the most tragic cases.
Don't tell me they don't have boots. She behaved like a lunatic last time.
You ought to let somebody younger go with her.
You've been moving things round again.
I haven't been moving things round.
Well, didn't this used to be over here?
It's never been over there.
And being so user-friendly was something that Triumph's ad agency made a big thing of. They boasted of 95% visibility from a driver's seat that would adjust 72 different ways, and not forgetting that teeny turning circle. The Herald was the perfect plaything for a new breed of lady driver.
We felt that the other thing about the turning circle was that ladies don't like reversing, so we put a tight turning circle on it.
The early 60s. Triumph's advertising was unashamedly sexist, with some really cringe-worthy efforts. See how far you'd get these days with twaddle-like. The Herald is a car with plenty of space for those feminine knickknacks, or a brochure thick with chauvinistic cliches. But back then, no one cared. They were even seduced by nonsense like the girl gets dated, but the Herald doesn't. But actually, it did. The Herald's suburban sweetness began to work against it. These were the years of the pill, pot, and purple haze. As hemlines rose, the Herald looked like it belonged to the Twin Sets and Pearls Brigade. Even the aircraft were getting nose jobs. And cars like the Ford Cortina were giving the Herald a hard time. For the late 60s, the Herald was beginning to look and feel its age and needed the odd tweak and tuck. Once again, Triumph called upon the talents of Michelotti, who deftly gave it a whole new look by slapping on a couple of angled headlights and a stripy new grille. And behind that fetching new front was a fetching new engine, an exciting 1300cc unit, which propelled the Herald to a dizzy top speed of 84 miles an hour. But we'd seen those slant-eyed headlamps somewhere before in the Vitesse, a Herald with some serious go.
summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and pretty. Been down, isn't it a pity?
The 100-mile-an-hour six-cylinder V10 may have blessed the Herald with glamour by association, but even the 1360's good looks weren't enough to stop the Herald's demise. The last one rolled off the production line in 1971. It might have gone, but it's certainly not forgotten. And today, the Herald's twinkiness looks better than ever before.
I was driving this through Knightsbridge a little while ago, and, you know, fur hat, coat, sunglasses, and a lorry driver wound down his window and said, here, he said, you just stepped out of a Bond film. Well, to a woman of a certain age, that's a very flattering thing to have said to you.
Well, when I owned it back in the 60s, one or two people would look round as I was driving along. But now, wherever I drive, along the Bournemouth front in particular, almost everybody turns their heads when they see me coming.
I mean, people stop me all the time in the street. They wind down the window and say, oh, you know, they're sweltering in a Bentley because the air conditioning's packed up, and they say, straight swap, no deal. If this car ever comes on the market, I'm either dead or in very severe trouble. I'd sell the flat and sleep in the car.
Today, it's one of those cars, like the VW Beetle and the Morris Minor, that's enjoying a second childhood.
As a trained designer, I think the Triumph Herald is a design icon. It has the 60s looks, and I think the lines have lasted for a good 30 years, and it looks as good now as it did then.
Something tells me I'm into something good. I think it's just a typical 60s car, really. I'd like to have lived in the 60s, actually. It's been really good. It's got lots of chrome on it. It's really quite pretty. When I first bought it, it smelled, my mum said it smelled like the 60s used to smell like.
There's one particular reason I like Herald, I suppose, and that's because I met my wife through them. I met her at an owners club rally several years ago now, and I was there with my Herald, and she actually owned two, you know. I mean, that was itself quite unusual and quite impressive. Now we own three of them. Yeah, we're a three Herald family.
If cars remind us of the way we were, then the Herald takes us back to a simpler time when we got turned on by tiny tail fins and two-tone paint. Supposedly a product of the swinging 60s, the Herald actually stands out as a wholesome, charming reminder of how respectable we really were. But the Triumph Herald story would not be complete without mention of its most bizarre incarnation. Powered by a Herald engine, the Amphicar was a waterbound wonder. It cost millions to develop in 1959 and amazingly sold 2,500. Capable of 60 miles an hour on land and 6 knots on water, 3 of them actually sailed across the channel to the Frankfurt Motor Show. This is the maddest car I've ever driven. It is absolutely barking, but it's wonderful. I wonder if it aquaplanes.